A retired detective is pulled back into a case when a long-lost clue surfaces. Frank Holloway stared into the bottom of his glass, the amber liquid swirling slowly. His small apartment felt more like a relic of the past than a home. The silence hung heavy in the air, a reminder of what he'd lost. A knock at the door shattered that quiet.
Frank.
A familiar voice called from the hallway. Frank groaned, pushing himself off the couch. His steps were slow, unsteady, but he opened the door to find his old partner, Joe Patterson, standing with a younger woman, Rachel Navarro.
Joe. What do you want?
We wouldn't be here if it wasn't important.
Important? That's not a word I've been dealing with much lately.
There's been a development in the Pendleton case.
The words hit Frank like a punch to the gut. He hadn't heard that name in years, but the weight of it lingered in every moment of his life. He stiffened but stayed silent.
We found something, Martin Pendleton's notebook. Inside, there's a name that wasn't there before, someone who might have been involved, someone we missed.
You missed it, huh?
You know this case better than anyone. We need you, Frank.
Frank's eyes moved to the notebook Rachel held out. His hand trembled slightly as he took it and flipped through the pages. A name stood out, circled several times, along with an address.
Why come to me? I'm not that guy anymore.
Because you deserve a chance to finish what you started.
There was a long pause, the weight of the past pressing down on Frank's shoulders. He glanced at the bottle on the table, then set it aside, grabbing his coat.
Let's go.
The rain was falling lightly as they approached a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It was the kind of place that felt forgotten by time. Joe's hand rested on his gun as they moved forward.
This place was supposed to be cleared out years ago.
Supposed to be.
They stepped inside, the air thick with dust and decay. Their flashlights sliced through the darkness, illuminating a makeshift sleeping area, old crates, and something more sinister, photographs pinned to the wall. Pictures of a girl, aging over time from a child to a teenager.
She's alive. All this time.
Frank moved closer to the photos, examining the details in each one, the peeling wallpaper in the background, the barred windows. He could feel his heart racing.
We need to find where these were taken.
Rachel nodded, snapping photos. Joe was already on his radio, calling in backup. But Frank couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. His instincts, long dormant, had flared back to life. Days passed, and Frank found himself back in the dark places he had sworn off. He sat across from an informant in a smoke-filled bar, the shadows of the city's underbelly pressing in on them. The man shifted nervously as Frank slid a wad of cash across the table.
Grayson. Tell me about him.
The informant glanced around, his voice shaky.
Grayson's dangerous, real-connected, has mixed up with people who will take girls and sell emerited. You don't want to mess with him unless you already do disappear.
And Emily Pendleton. Where is she?
Has got a place, old mansion, outskirts of the city.
Frank returned home after another long night of chasing shadows. As soon as he stepped into his apartment, he knew something was wrong. The door was ajar. Inside, it looked like a tornado had swept through, papers everywhere, drawers pulled out, furniture overturned. And then he saw it. A photograph lying on the floor in the center of the chaos. His daughter, smiling, long before everything had gone wrong. Taped to the back was a note. Stay out of this, or she's next. Frank stared at the photo, his hands shaking. They had made a mistake, coming after his family. The rage inside him, long buried under years of guilt and regret, boiled over. The next day, Frank met Joe and Rachel in a secluded park. They stood beneath the trees, far from prying eyes. Frank handed Joe the photo, his voice barely controlled.
They made it personal.
Joe's face hardened as he looked at the picture, then at Frank.
We're going after him, no more playing by the rules.
I've got the location, Grayson's hiding in that mansion. We hit him tonight.
The night was thick with tension as Frank, Joe, and a small team approached the mansion. The place was old, decaying, but heavily guarded. They moved in silence, slipping through the overgrown gardens, their approach hidden by the shadows. Inside, the mansion was a maze of dark corridors and locked doors. Frank moved with purpose, driven by the thought of his daughter, by the years he had lost chasing after Emily Pendleton. Finally, they found him. Grayson stood in a lavish room, surrounded by surveillance screens showing every corner of the estate. He turned slowly, a smirk on his face. His voice smooth.
"Detective Holloway, I knew you'd come."
Frank raised his gun, his voice cold.
Where is she?
"Which one, Emily, or no, could you possibly mean, your daughter? Maybe if you hadn't been so obsessed with Pendleton, your family wouldn't have fallen apart."
The word stung, but Frank didn't flinch.
Last chance. Where is she?
Grayson's hand moved toward a hidden gun, but Frank was quicker. The shot echoed through the room, and Grayson crumpled to the floor, his smirk replaced by a look of shock. Behind a hidden wall, they found Emily, alive but traumatized. She had grown, her eyes hollow from years of captivity, her once youthful face now shadowed with the weight of her lost years. But she was alive. Frank knelt beside her, his heart heavy with both relief and guilt. His hand shook as he gently placed it on her shoulder.
You're safe now.
The words almost foreign after so much time spent searching. Emily looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and confusion, like a child trying to remember what safety felt like. As he held her gaze, the image of his own daughter flashed in his mind, her smile, her innocence. How much had she lost, too, because of his obsession? How many years had slipped away while he drowned in his failure, failing her as much as Emily? Frank swallowed hard, knowing the reunion with his own daughter wouldn't be as simple. There was no quick fix for the damage that had been done, not for Emily, not for his family. The road ahead for Emily would be long and fraught with challenges. The scars of her captivity would linger far beyond her physical wounds, her memories tainted by years of darkness and isolation. It would take years to heal, if healing was even possible. For her, as for Frank, there was no return to what life had been before. He squeezed her hand gently.
One step at a time.
Though he wasn't sure if he was saying it for her sake or his own.
If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like and follow for more. Thank you for watching.